Welcome to the Expert Network Team podcast,
where our goal is to inform and educate our listeners on matters related to finance, legal, insurance, accounting, and other interests that are of personal and business nature.
We hope you will find our content useful as well as entertaining. The Expert Network Team consists of Carl Frank of A&I Financial, Mike Miller of Miller & Associates CPAs, Jeff Kromendijk of Security First Insurance Agency, and I'm Nathan Merrill. I'm an attorney at Goodspeed & Merrill.
Together, our independent team combines our expertise to provide you insights and solutions, some straightforward, some profound, for real-life opportunities we see on a daily basis. We hope you enjoy the information contained in today's podcast and find it useful. If you'd like to learn more or desire to meet with any of the Expert Network team members in person, you can contact us at info@expertnetworkteam.com. That's info@expertnetworkteam.com.
We encourage you to take advantage of a free consultation with any of our team members. Just mention this podcast when you schedule your appointment.
Now on to today's podcast. Welcome to today's podcast. Again, this is Nathan Merrill of Goodspeed Merrill. Glad to be here today with Carl Frank of A&I Wealth Management. Carl, welcome.
It's great to see you again, Nate. How are you?
I'm doing really good. And I also have Jeff Kromendijk with us of One Digital.
Is that it? That's all there is to it, right? We expect something after One Digital.
I think I must work for a tech company or something like that, right?
Or phone service.
One Digital Insurance.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Well, I didn't pick the name of the company that we merged with, but it's One Digital. That's correct. One Digital Insurance, I think, is probably more
descriptive.
Yeah, descriptive. But it's good.
All right. With that
Thanks,
aside,
Nate, for the intro. It's good to see you.
Our return guest, Shawn Barbaras of More Than Money 360. Welcome, Shawn.
Welcome. Great. Thank you for having me, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
And where we left it off with Shawn, and what I kind of teased up from our last podcast for our listeners' benefit was we were talking a lot with Shawn about the elements that go into helping a family identify and preserve a legacy in a qualitative way, not the quantitative way of how it's normally viewed in terms of wealth and assets, but more in terms of the qualitative relationships, core values, and I won't reiterate everything you talked about, Shawn, but where we left it off was to go maybe in the way back machine a little bit and go back in history and figure out how this industry that you're in came into being, kind of what was the genesis behind it, because clearly families have had this problem since the dawn of time in terms of figuring out how to have an enduring family legacy and enduring family name. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what led you to this and some of the history that you got into as you did your research.
Yeah, sure. So my wife and I both graduated law school in 2000. I just started drafting documents, mostly for members of my church. And I got pulled into financial services. They said, hey, take a look at my insurance statement, take a look at my 401k statement, whatever it may be. And I started working with more and more successful business owners who kept expressing their concern about the negative impact of wealth. We're expressing their concern about the rising generation being unprepared to manage the wealth, to make group decisions. And I kept asking them, this is 2000 to 2007. I kept asking these successful business owners, these decade centimillionaires, well, what are you going to do about it? And I kept getting a very similar response, like, Shawn, show me what to do and I'll do it. And so I moved into this space officially in 2007. I sold my interest in what was an independent regional financial services company. And I hired researchers, and they started bringing me all the reasons why wealth transfers were failing. And they were all qualitative for the most part. Yes, making bad financial decisions can take the financial wealth down, but what really is going to be destructive to the family unit is ignoring the qualitative side of wealth. And we started surveying the industry. How are they doing it? Well, in my opinion, it was very traditional consultation, consultancy based, right? Joe or Janet, the consultant's going to fly into Denver and interview Jeff for 3 hours, interview Carl for 3 hours, and Nate for 3 hours, and your spouses, and they're going to write a report, and they're going to have a family meeting, and they're going to go through and discuss the report. Well, one, that's very time consuming. Two, there's no clear deliverable for the family. And three, families aren't all living in Mayberry anymore. They're all not on the same street like they used to be, right? Families are more geographically dispersed than ever. And during COVID, they were socially distanced. And we've been leveraging technology to connect families that are geographically dispersed since 2012. Well, really since 2010, but doing it well in 2012. Having a way to be able to connect families was missing, that were geographically dispersed, being more respectful of the client's time as opposed to airdropping. There's always a dinner afterwards. I mean, you're basically taking a day or so, or maybe two, to be able to do this. And we crunched that down into 5 30-minute monthly, Zooms. We started doing a GoToMeeting in 2012. So that was something that really jumped out to me as the industry. It was very time intensive. It was very location centric, and it lacked a clear deliverable. So when we got this research, I sat down with a bunch of folks in my company and said, okay, we need to be able to overcome each one of those. What I would say, I wouldn't say there were objections, but I think we need to come over each one of those challenges. Maybe the best way to put it. So that's when we decided that we had to really make it a technology. And the rising generation didn't want to engage in a paper-based platform. My partner in 2016, when I met him, I was talking to him for 7 minutes. He slams his desk and says, Shawn, stop. Where have you been all my life? Can I show you these Excel spreadsheets I've been doing to help identify core values, help identify shared philanthropic vision, help identify the communication style of each individual? I got spreadsheets over spreadsheets. It takes me hours. And, we're doing it instantaneously through our technology, and then making that information available to everybody in the family. Transparency breeds trust, all available right in the palm of your hand. So it really provides that clear deliverable, connects the family that's geographically dispersed or during COVID, socially distanced. And again, 30 minutes a month. The average millennial is spending 42 minutes a day on social media. We're asking for 30 minutes a month. So if they tell us they don't want to participate, it's much more than the time. They're saying they just don't, they don't want to be a part of the family culture in that way. So we simplified it down to that. It took us years to get there. Don't get me wrong. From 2007 to 2012, we failed so much. We coined the term failing forward. We felt like we were making progress, but we were still failing. But once 2012 hit, we really took off.
So in your research and in the kind of the background to your ability to provide these services and deliverables, did you study historical families, or what did you look at in terms of the guide and the developing the systems around a successful family wealth transfer, successful family legacy?
Right. So we looked at a number. We did some primary research, and we did a lot of secondary research, looking and understanding and reading why wealth transfers were failing. Overwhelmingly, there were qualitative reasons: lack of communication, rising generation feeling dictated to, things that were lack of transparency. Why are mom and dad telling me this? Do they not trust me? Do they not think I'm smart enough? Right. And then that creates resentment. And then so
these trends go back beyond just our lifetimes. These are kind of historical trends that are manifest throughout history.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we identified is you got to get the rising generation engaged as soon as possible. That's the key. Because G1 or whatever number the oldest generation is, they can tell the rising generation whatever they want to tell them. That doesn't mean they're listening. That doesn't mean they're going to do it. They're only going to do what they feel that they have input on and they have a say in, so that it empowers them to be part of this conversation and to certainly feel that they're having their voice heard. But if they're going to continue to dictate to them, then what happens? I remember sitting down with a client in 2009, watching CNN, and they said, I hadn't seen my son in 18 months. And there's my son at an Occupy Wall Street protest in the background. Well, why? Mom and dad and grandma and grandpa kept telling them, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. We're going to support this charity. You're going to go to this school. They just kept, and he said, forget it. I'm out of here. I'm tired of people telling me what to do. So I'm going to go do what I want to do.
That actually, if I can ping you on one other thing that you threw out there, like a bomb or grenade, whatever, is communication styles. Talk about how that factors into the work you do with families.
Yeah, sure. It's for me, it's, if I had my druthers, it would be the very first assessment we do with any family member. We have an assessment that we complete during those 30-minute monthly consultations, number of questions that each individual family member will complete. And then the output will tell you, are you a fiery red driver, right? Are you a sunshine yellow expressive? Are you a cool blue analytical? Are you an earth green amiable? To be able to identify which is your dominant. Now, we all use all 4 social styles in certain fact patterns, but what is your dominant fact pattern? Dominant communication style. My apologies, communication style. And this way we can start to identify the different ways that each family member prefers to communicate. I'm a sunshine yellow. If you don't make it fun, I'm not going to be interested very long. My wife is a fiery red. If I don't give it to her in bullet points and get to the point, she's going to keep moving. She's got to check the box. She's got to keep it. So when you understand these things about one another within a family, you're able to communicate more clearly. And as we talked about in the last podcast, communication is the lifeblood of a successful wealth transfer. It's the wiring, it's the plumbing, it's the connectivity in the house. So identifying social styles and communication styles, we feel, is a very important first step to elevating that meaningful communication and really providing clarity in the family's communication.
So how do you use that if you were to, so we've identified everybody, we've got the full rainbow going on here. When you're having a family meeting, do those get called out to say, see, here's your fiery red coming through and here's your cool blue? Or how does that get worked into the understanding of what's going on in the family?
So we will talk about the 4 major communication styles in very large, kind of large stroke, wide stroke descriptions. And so that we're not talking about, okay, Nate's a cool blue and, Nate's cool blue is coming. That's not the way we do it. We talk about, okay, what's a cool blue? And if you want to communicate clearly with a cool blue, what is it you have to do? And now we're getting into the versatility of communication. But the first thing you need to do is understand the 4 communication styles. And then obviously I understand which communication style each family member is. So understanding that, if you're talking to an earth green amiable, they're worried about they are concerned about the depth of relationships. They don't want to be, they're very sensitive to being taken advantage of because they're so kind and they want to believe everybody else is kind, right? That's why they're such an amiable. Analytical. Don't go to an analytical with emotions. For the most part, they don't care. Go give them data. Go give them facts that they can analyze and say, the logical conclusion is this. Right? They need that from facts and data. So it's about understanding the 4 communication styles. That's step 1. Step 2 is understanding now the versatility of communication. I'm a sunshine yellow. I have to communicate with a cool blue. What is it I need to do to elevate clarity and minimize any sort of disagreement or conflict? That's what we call the versatility of communication, almost communication 201, so to speak. So it's a process. It's not an event. But the first thing in identifying and understanding the 4 social styles, that's really step 1. And then how to adapt and understand the versatility of communication to have more clarity is step 2.
Shawn, if I understand you right, this is and you've said this several times, it's a process, not a product. It's not an end.
Process, not an event. Yes.
And I think you had said earlier that you expect everybody every month to be contributing some time. So how many meetings are you holding? What does that process actually look like? How long does this go? You give me an idea of what that looks like.
Oh, sure. Well, our relationship with the client evolves and changes over time. In the beginning, we're helping them identify and certainly improve communication, identify the core values. We're meeting with them 30 minutes a month for 5 months. Month 6, we'll have a family meeting. Right? And then we'll say, okay, where do we want to go from here? We just did communication. Do we want to talk about values? Do we want to talk about legacy? Do we want to talk about philanthropy? Do we want to talk about governance? And the family tells us which way they want to go. Then we have another 6-month project, different subject matter, same structure. It's like riding a bike. And then eventually, once they go through what we call the major quote unquote projects, based on core values and communication and legacy, gratitude, governance, we then kind of fall back into a maintenance mode. I have a number of clients now that have family councils and governance meetings, but they don't want the communication to stop. They don't want to, they want to continue to have annual family meetings. So for example, next Wednesday, I have a client that's been with me probably a decade or thereabouts at least, where they have their formal family governance structure set up. And we are going to have a quarterly governance meeting. And we all jump on the Zoom, and the gratitude committee speaks and the financial committee speaks. They have a quote unquote fun committee just around having fun with the family and so forth. So they'll have the opportunity for all the committees to meet, and then they will report back to the family. September we'll have a in-person family meeting, which is really this great celebration of the family, but continuing to work together and get better. So we go from monthly 30 minutes to quarterly for 90 minutes and an annual family meeting. So the relationship evolves. Our clients typically don't want us to go away. They just want us to recede into the night a little, little by little over time, which is what we want to do, because we want them to be able to stand on their own and manage these things. But if you look at the research, I think it's 83%, 84% of family members respond better to an outside professional opinion than having mom or dad or grandma or grandpa kind of lead the conversation. So,
well, you've earned their trust at that point. And I'm really, really interested in your ideas about getting that second generation involved, and really curious about what that means. And I'm sure it means different things for different ages. I'm sure it means different things for different personality types. And we talked about communication styles. But I'm also really, actually, quite frankly, concerned about certain patriarchs in the organization, especially the men who've made the money, and convincing somebody who's done that, especially a small business owner, to surrender control is a really big challenge. I'm really interested in what you do to facilitate those types of conversations.
Yeah, I'd like to just tuck right in behind that, because that's exactly what I was thinking is, the preparation for this meeting, before bringing the rest of the family in, I would imagine there's some groundwork that needs to be laid for the patriarch to, in essence, prepare that person or that couple really for what they very well could be encountering with regards to the millennials and this generation that really they have a very difficult time connecting or relating to. And so now I'm about to transfer maybe the quantitative part of this over to somebody who just I don't even align with. And what does this mean? What does this look like? And yeah, the whole control thing, I'd be really interested, Shawn, if you could speak to that a little bit.
Well, it's really simple. We're not asking the patriarch to give up control of the quantitative assets. We're not. We're not even asking the patriarch and matriarch to disclose the net worth. I've had clients for 2 years. I don't know their net worth. It's not important. What's important is they want to get better together as a family. So what happens is the matriarch and the patriarch, they give up zero control. It's a conversation, right? You just talked about, well, we don't have alignment with the rising generation. Well, that's what we're doing here, right? We're finding where that alignment is. And then after one project, 2 projects, 3 projects, whatever it may be, the older generation saying, okay, the rising generation is showing to me that they can handle this. And so now we start the experiential learning process. Whether it's managing an impact investment portfolio for the rising generation, they peel off X number of dollars and they say, okay, rising generation, you manage this. This is experiential learning with training wheels. If you mess it up, okay, the family's going to be fine. But really, it's the lessons that you're going to learn about working together, making decisions, overcoming differences of opinions, right? Then when the older generation sees, okay, well, now they can do that. Well, maybe we can give a little bit more control to them. And it's not, you're going to hear me say it again. It's a process, not an event. It's not something that we're flicking a switch and the older generation saying, here, take it. Or we're saying,
that's great.
Hey, older generation, you got to give it to them now. Not at all. Not at all. We're preparing the rising generation to earn the right to have control over the quantitative assets. And there's only 1 or 2 decision makers that get to make that decision as to whether they've earned that right or not.
I want to slip something into the conversation here that I think will also kind of blow Carl's and Jeff's mind a little bit in terms of this paradigm shift. But talk about
they're laughing at us.
Talk about how you work in the extended family members, the spouses of the children, because normally when we think of the family, we think of the pyramid that we create, not the one that we're assimilating into our family.
Right. Well, you think about it. You lay in bed and you're laying in bed next to your wife, and you want to create a process that's going to empower and unify the family. And the first thing we're going to say to you is leave your wife at home, leave your spouse at home. That is a disunifying event. We strongly encourage. Actually, my rule of thumb is if there's the proverbial ring on the finger, bring them in. And that is a unifying piece, because now all of a sudden we have husband keeping secret from wife or wife keeping secret from husband. That is the opposite of transparent. Transparency breeds trust. So we are, we're pretty adamant about spouses being involved in the process, so that we can have that transparency for sure, because they have children together. This is going to have an impact on their children that they have together. How can you possibly exclude them? That doesn't serve the best interest of the family, in our opinion.
Do you have any, not evidence, but examples of how impactful that has been to include someone who may have thought they were on the outside?
Well, I think the mere invitation to participate is the kind of the kick in the shins. I'm not sure how many spouses in the beginning expect it. I know that there are some spouses that'll say, well, if my husband can't do this with me, I'm not doing it. And we've even had a couple cases where I think of one family right now. The son was living with, it was now the daughter-in-law, but they were dating. They graduated college. They were living together in LA. They were living together for 3-4 years. They're going to get married. They're waiting for the right time. And I said, look, it's up to you if you want to bring her into this. My rule of thumb is ring on the finger. We got to bring them in. And no, their son wouldn't do it if his significant other wasn't going to be included, right? So most of the time, most family members want their spouses to be included. We strongly believe, and if you look at the history, and you want to create discontent within a family, start excluding spouses. So we take the opposite approach.
Shawn, I got to ask you, we got to probably land the plane on this one, but do many of the kids show up because they're focused on the quantitative, and once they get to the table, they realize, wow, this is much more than that. And I guess I'm glad I showed up, but my motive initially was, hey, what am I going to get, right? Tell us a little bit about that. It's shifted my thought process in the last half hour, that this is much more than just qualitative or quantitative wealth transfer.
Yeah, so what we'll do is, prior to engaging and starting a project, we have an introductory offering we call Vision 360 that goes through all this subject matter. And certainly they'll get a good idea of what the subject matter is. For example, the first session, we talk about the 6 laws of family advancement and sustainability. What have the most successful families done over 100 years or 3 generations to successfully transfer and grow their financial wealth and maximize their positive impact? Session 2 is wealth synonymous with money. We very strongly disagree with that. We believe that there's 3 dimensions to your wealth. Yes, your financial, your personal, your values, your life experiences, and your social wealth, the positive impact you have on others. Those 3 dimensions of your wealth. And then in the third session, we talk about the 5 pillars of multi-generational success that I've expressed here tonight. Communication, core values, family legacy, gratitude / philanthropy, and governance. So they understand that this isn't going to be how to manage private equity deals before they get into it. They understand. Now, if they didn't do Vision 360, then we literally will have one 45-minute Zoom where we'll just do a synopsis of, here's what the process is, here's what it does. And in there is nothing talking about, Well, you're going to know the net worth, you're going to know where the assets are all residing, and so forth and so on. So they know going into that it's qualitative, with the goal of getting to governance that will then include quantitative decisions. But you can't do that till you communicate clearly, you know the core values, you know what positive impact you want to have, you know how you're going to overcome conflict, and so forth and so on. It's a process, not an event, but we get to that for sure.
Good. Nate, what do you think?
How does one get the? I mean, what does the process look like with you, Shawn? You mentioned Vision 360. Is that the best way to start out?
That's the way most families start out. I mean, it's $6,000 for the whole family. It's a loss leader for us as a company, but we believe it's a wonderful educational opportunity for the company. And then everybody in the family gets a dashboard into the technology. They all complete, everybody that's participating completes our wealth transfer preparedness survey. And then just like, they'll have their individual results, then our technology will aggregate it. We'll have an aggregated result, and we'll review them together in the third session of Vision 360. So they'll get really a lot of research to understand the subject matter, why it's important, and then exactly where their family stands, with everybody having an equal voice in determining their level of preparedness and how satisfied they are with their level of preparedness, i.e., do they even care? And we'll review those results in session 3. So that is usually the best way for families to have an appetizer before they kind of jump into the full meal. And that's certainly something that we suggest.
Sounds great.
Well, I got a lot more questions that we could continue to throw your way, Shawn. This has been amazing. I think this is one of our best podcasts ever, quite frankly. And I think primarily because this is just right where we're all at now, right? It's really, really applicable. So, yeah. And Nate, I know maybe we pick it up from here next time too. I'd like to see where a firm like Goodspeed and Merrill can pick up this work and actually bring it into more of a legal document. And what should come first? Should a legal document come first and then this process? Or it seems to me this process flushes out a lot of stuff that ends up in a will or a trust or so on and so forth. So
I'll borrow some wisdom from somebody I know and say it's a process, not an event.
Okay.
Now you're just making fun of me, Nate. That's what
I don't know that it matters which one comes first, but you're absolutely right. They do work together, as does the financial planning and the risk management. I mean, all these things are part of that dimensional view of the family legacy, as opposed to just being one-dimensional wealth related.
Great. So how do our listeners connect with Shawn? Do we have any pointers?
I'll let
Shawn,
you
tell us how to get in touch with you right now, and we'll put it on the link as well in the notes. So
sure. Website is more than MORETHAN money MONEY 360.com, all typed out. And my email address is shawn@mtm-360.com. Open. Anybody has any questions? Happy to keep moving the mission forward.
Awesome.
They can also probably connect through any of us, because the relationship is the strength in making all this happen. So
good idea.
We'd be happy to make the introduction. Very good. Shawn,
thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. It was a pleasure.
Hey, Jeff, great to see you both.
Thanks, Carl. Create a beautiful day.
Create a beautiful day, my friend.
All right.
See you.
Thank you for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed the information we shared.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please feel free to share it with someone else. And join us next time.
If you want to meet with a member of the team, please contact us at info@expertnetworkteam.com. That's info@expertnetworkteam.com.
If you have special topics you'd like to hear about, please reach out to us and let us know at the same email address. Again, that's info@expertnetworkteam.com. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day. Thank you for listening to this podcast. We want to remind you that listening to this podcast does not establish a client-professional relationship with any of the firms represented, nor does it constitute legal, investment, or accounting advice, and the views are those of the professionals only.
Investment advisory services may be provided through A&I Financial Services, and securities may be provided through Genios Wealth Management.